Now, this hour on Coast to Coast, John Lear will be joined with Richard C. Hoagland. We'll talk about some of these structures on the moon and more in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. John, tell us a little bit more about Richard Hoagland's Moon-Mars connection that helped get you interested in some of the moon work.
It was fascinating, but just let me slip this in here. Ron Schmidt, who has helped me with all this and done tremendous research over the past 2 months, has a website, thelivingmoon.com and landoflegends.us. That's thelivingmoon.com and landoflegends.us. And just a quick shout to Hank McCoy and my daughters Allie and Jax and their friends Trish and Matt. Now, when I saw that Moon-Mars connection of Richard Hoagland, it was absolutely fascinating. And so I started researching all the stuff that he had shown in that, and that's what led me to all of this research I've done. I mean, Richard is a fantastic guy. I've talked to him many times on the phone. He showed me some pictures. He had one hidden. Not hidden, but he didn't name it, and it was on his website. And since the name wasn't there, I didn't want to say, "Hey, what's that?"
Yeah.
And make a jerk out of myself. So I waited a couple of days, maybe a week or so, and then I finally sent it to him. I said, "What's that?" He emails back and he says, "You like it?" I said, "Richard, I'm going to wring your neck unless you tell me what that is." And it was a structure rising out of Tri-Sneckers, about 60 miles high. It was fantastic. Anyway, Richard is a great guy.
Well, I'm going to invite everybody in now to listen to this conversation between you, John, and Richard Hoagland as you talk about this issue of Moon-Mars. And so come on in, everybody, along with Richard C. Hoagland, the head of the EnterpriseMission.com. Hi, Richard. How are you?
Our national campfire, George.
Absolutely. It is. Look, Richard, I'm going to do this a little differently this time. I'm going to I'll interject every once in a while, as I always do, but I kind of want a conversation between you and John. I mean, both of you have come up with just some startling revelations of issues on the moon. Rich, I want you to talk to him about what you showed me at Joshua Tree, that incredible robotic head. But go ahead, just chat, have some fun.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me acknowledge someone who's really important on our team. You met him at Joshua Tree, Steve Troy.
Yes, I did.
Who has done some incredible work going back about 10 years. I believe, John, part of your photographic montage that you sent over to Lex was the crater Kepler.
Yeah, and that's Steve Troy's picture.
Exactly, and that's the area you call the city. Steve has been over that with literally a microscope and was showing me that like 8-9 years ago, and we were finding things in some of the lunar orbiter stuff that actually to this day has not been published. He's actually going to have a three-dimensional computer modeling of some of that now crafted by some of our VTR friends. And he has done such amazing work. As I was saying earlier tonight, George, you don't believe in coincidence.
No.
Tonight I did 2 hours with our old friend David Livingston on the Space Show, which is the show that he has that kind of has co-opted all of the alternate space people, the engineers and the NASA people and the disenfranchised contractor people, all the people that can't understand what Griffin is really up to, because nothing about the New Moon Initiative really makes engineering sense, and we might get into that in a little while. Anyway, I did 2 hours with him, basically no holds barred. The gloves came off, and I talked about all the bizarre things that I'm going to be showing in Los Angeles at the Expo in a couple, 3 weeks. You think you have seen something, George, amazing? Wait till you see what I'm going to show you next, my friend.
All right.
Now, John, I'm hoping you can get over to L.A. for this. This is the first weekend in February 9th through the 13th.
Okay, I'll make it a point.
At the L.A. Hilton.
Okay.
Because I got to tell everybody, everybody in America in this extraordinary audience, John is one of the few people that I both immensely agree with and immensely disagree with at the same time.
How so?
Well, John is a pilot, all right? I'm a physicist. My background is astrophysics. John is a very savvy layman in this area, listening to certain sources, and he's got the right ballpark. He's in the right solar system, but some of the specific interpretations of the imagery that he has presented, from my analysis and my colleagues, is not exactly on point. But that really doesn't matter, because if you're in the same solar system on this, it's a home run. There are structures on the moon. There are artificial structures on the moon. Some of them are old, incredibly old. Some of them are new. I don't know how new. I don't know whether we're mining for minerals. Minerals is kind of passé when you get to this level of exploitation of celestial objects. Frankly, John, I think we're mining for the retro-engineering of the ancient technologies that are deep under the visible and battered lunar surface. Can you imagine what it would be worth to find a working device that could produce free energy? Forget helium-3. That could tap into the 0 point directly, bring it back to Earth, figure out how it worked, and then have independent free power forever and lock it up, have the sole ownership of that technology. I mean, there's lots to mine on the moon. I don't think it's minerals. I think it's technology and the ancient science of those who came before.
And we're looking for it with a bucket wheel excavator that's 100 feet high.
Because on this show a few weeks ago, remember, George, I made a big deal about the so-called Ina Formation?
Mm-hmm.
This is a formation, John, that was made a big deal of by a couple of guys at Harvard a few weeks ago with a paper in Nature. There's an area kind of like in the dead center of the moon, just above the center of the moon, about 3-4 miles across, looks like a kind of a horseshoe, called the Ina Formation, I-N-A. It is supposedly the youngest, cleanest, sharpest, smoothest area on the entire moon, as judged by the orbiter and Clementine and other photography. It also is brilliantly visible in titanium bands, meaning it has a lot of titanium on the surface. In fact, it's the most titanium they found of any spot on the moon. It looks, to me, again, coming at it from a different perspective, as an excavation. And what really cinches it, as I said on Coast, is that it's at 19.5. It's 19 degrees north, 5 degrees west. So somebody excavated a 3 or 4 mile area, like a super archaeological expedition, to show us dumb Earth guys when we got back to the moon, if that model is correct, if we were there before and we're going back now, where to look, because all the surface stuff is really beaten to hell in a handbasket. If you want to find pristine things that still work, things that you can learn from, if you want to find the libraries, you've got to dig below the surface. And it looks to me, and I'm going to lay out the evidence for people coming to the expo in L.A., that somebody did us an incredible favor at this code latitude and longitude of 19.5, so we would go there and look at what's there, and that's one of the areas that I want the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter in 2008 to target, because, George, it will have almost the same resolution for the moon as we have with MRO of Mars, which is inches across.
What's fascinating, though, is you and John, regardless of what's going on there, agree that something is happening on the moon.
Well, I agree something happened. I'm much, much, much less certain, because I don't see it in our data that something is happening. The only place where I've seen structures, and I use that term in quotes, which look pretty new, like they're really, really kind of
ongoing,
brand new,
yeah,
would be on ramparts, John, in Tycho. When you look at Tycho, at some of the lunar orbiter pictures, you see this huge 60-mile wide impact crater, and then you see around the edges on the inside what they call abatements, which are flat areas that look like lava had pooled after the heat of the impact. On some of those, there are absolutely incredible, regular geometric structures that do not look as if they have been shattered and bashed by meteors exposed for millions and millions of years. They look very, very, very new. Now, the problem that I have with the whole new idea is that on the moon, because there's no, and this is going to get John really intrigued, no atmosphere. We'll come back to that, right, John?
Yeah, there's a breathable atmosphere.
Okay.
I agree.
This is where John and I really, really disagree. All right, but let's hold that for just
Well, you're
a
in good company, because Bob Lazar doesn't believe it, and Ignorant Ape doesn't believe it. So you have good company.
Well, but I've got evidence, and we'll go through the evidence for the audience, because in other words, what everyone needs to know is that John and I are not just picking this out of strange parts